In 1973, noted collector Roger Gross produced a radio tribute to Zinka Milanov with the participation of the diva herself and Philadelphia critic Max de Schauensee. They talk about many things, including Madame Milanov's vocal aspects, such as her famed pianissimo, the grand manner, and comparisons of her recordings. The listener will also hear arias from Il Trovatore, Aida, and La Forza del Destino. Part 1 of 3.
1952.
Music of Verdi from Il Trovatore, the debut role of Zinka Milanov, who sang it there. My guests are Zinka Milanov and Max de Schauensee, and we'll continue after I take care of a couple of announcements. You won't mind this first one because it's from the Metropolitan Opera. You've heard of the Metropolitan Milanov,
so.
I think, once in a while. The next two Met performances of Peter Grimes are tonight and Saturday afternoon. John Vickers heads the cast of both, and good seats are still available for both. You can also get to Der Rosenkavalier on March 28th. Leonie Rieseneck, Yvonne Minton, Judith Blagan, and Walter Berry. Also, the first Tosca of the season is Saturday night, April 7th. Martino Arroyo, Franco Corelli, and Tito Gobbi. That one, a non-subscription performance, which means that seats are available at regular box office prices. To order your seats for any of these performances, call 799-4420. The lines are open between 10 a.m. and 8 p.m., but they tend to be busier in the morning, I guess, just like you, Madam Milanov. Everything happens in the morning. But try, therefore, between noon and 5 p.m. if you can. The number 799-4420. Major credit cards are accepted on phone orders and at the Met box office. Just give your name and credit card number to charge your seats. And now, for those planning an overseas trip,
Sabina will help you choose a holiday abroad.
Sabina Belgian World Airlines brings you Holiday Abroad. Over 40 travel adventures to places you want to go at prices you want to pay. You can travel at your own pace in your own style to your choice of destinations in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Maybe Israel is a place you've always wanted to visit. If so, consider Sabina Tours to the Holy Land. These vacations cost little, but they cover a lot for a unique holiday abroad of fun, history, and adventure.
Sabina will help you choose a holiday abroad. Sabina Airlines. Sabina.
Terrific.
Sabina tours to Israel start at $833. I think they end there, too. That's the full package price. For details, contact your travel agent or Sabina at 343-3200. That's a 212 code, 343-3200. Now, back to business of the day and the pleasure. Zinka Milanov and Max de Schauensee. And Mr. de Schauensee, let me read something that you wrote about Madame Milanov. Let's see. During the last 2 decades, we have become increasingly nostalgic for the past. Madame Milanov's strongly colored voice and majestic appearance definitely recalls the good old days. Thus, the affection bestowed upon her from younger opera buffs stemmed from a feeling of being privileged to take part in the manifestation of an earlier and grander tradition. Do you feel that that there was a good old days, that there has been a decline, that the opera of today is not what the opera was of...
On the whole, I would say there has been a slight decline, not as much as people would think. I think the singers of the early ages that I remember, I go back to Emmy Destine, they were different. Just how, I don't know, but they were different. Maybe just the way people in the street looked differently and talked differently.
Oh, very much so.
People were much more reticent about first names. I went to a dentist the other day. I'd never laid eyes on him before. He said, "Max, will you put your head back?" Well, it is surprising to a person of my generation. And so I think in the singing, too, there are some excellent singers today. There's no doubt about it. But it was a grand tradition. In the old days, life was grander. The hotels, the restaurants, everything was, it was different.
You know, I don't think it was really much more different than today. There were few very great singers, you know, that's true. Caruso and Scotto and many great singers. But we have also very great singers. We have had and we still have some very great singers around today. But that's different times today. We have today television, we have radio, and at that time, the golden age, what they call, you know, that's the time when they didn't have anything but little music and opera. That's what they had.
Well, I can understand why that would...
And that's why they appreciate it much more than today.
Yeah, but that's the point. Was it an appreciation that was different, or was it the people that were different? As far as you know, Madame Milanov,
I don't
was
know
there
if the people...
were singers different? Did they...
That's what I mean. That singers, there were a few great ones. Maybe we don't have. I wouldn't mention any names. Or tenors or soprano or mezzos, whatever it is. I don't know if the public of today would like all the singers of the past and the way they acted and lots of things which we don't have today. We must do things different today on the stage.
Were there any singers that you felt very excited about when you were beginning your career? Were there any singers you modeled yourself after?
Well, I don't want to now. I don't like to be. But I think that for me, I have to always when I say Caruso, I have to get up and say Caruso is the really the great one, and which still is for me the greatest.
Did you hear him?
I said always when I say Caruso, I must get up.
Yeah.
Did you ever actually hear
No,
him?
never.
I did. I heard him nine different occasions. Yes.
Well, you see, I was in Europe and
That's right, yes.
I was a youngster at that
You-
time
yes.
and lived in Yugoslavia.
Let's maybe we just digress for a moment since we brought up Caruso. How did your recollection of Caruso in person compare with your hearing the recordings now? Do they give a fair representation of
Yes,
him?
I feel very strongly about that. The amateur in this field will always say, oh, I was sorting out some things, there were some old scratchy Caruso records and I threw them out. And then other people will say, what a shame that he didn't record in the present era. Well, I'm so thankful he didn't, because I don't like the recording of the voice. It sounds as though it were in a closet often.
But he was magnificent, because in
Magnificent.
the old recordings, the voice is still marvelous. The orchestra is not good, and
But who cares?
But some old singers, on the old recordings are not so good, But he is marvelous.
Marvelous. Well, there were certain voices. McCormack, Caruso was among them. Caruso on the stage when he sang, I can remember it as though it were yesterday, it was unbelievable. First place was an enormous voice, and then the passion, the heart in back of it. It was a wave of sound and emotion that absolutely lifted you. It's like being, being raised by a wave in the water and splashed around, It was terrific.
Zinka Milanov, yesterday Barry Morell was on the program, and when he heard me announce that you were going to be here today, he burst into smiles and he said, I must absolutely give you his great regards, and he mentioned several roles that he sang with you at various first performances of his. And when I asked him, what of your recordings, which one shall I play today for you? And that is for him, for Barry.
Yes.
And he said the Pace Pace Mio Dio. Now what I have done, and you've been good enough not to tell me not to, is to take two recordings that you made.
Yes.
I don't have the dates in front of me, but perhaps you'll know. One was with Frieder Weissman, the other Renato Cellini.
Yes.
And I would like to play, before we hear the entire aria, I would like to play just the opening phrase, because there's quite a difference in your approach to that and the way you sing it, and I would like to ask you about it. So may we?
Yes.
Just the opening of both. think we had those in inverse order.
I think the first one was the later recording.
Yes, the first one was the later one. The second one was the early one,
yes.
which is beside the point, except for our comparison. Now, there
in
is...
conception, there is only the difference that I make this crescendo and decrescendo in the later recording. And the first one is shorter, but in conception is the same, you know, I mean, vocally. There is not any change, you know. Only when you put the crescendo and decrescendo, you know, this is the you know, what I have, my experience told me, you know, that I should do that, you know.
Now, this is what I wanted to get at. Are these changes that come into your, so whether it's the length of time that you hold or the crescendo or the phrasing or whatever it is,
that's right.
are these conscious changes, or are they just intuitive things that happen as you develop a role and as you work in it?
Well, this is very difficult to explain, you know. I felt that I could do that well, so I changed. I was advised. I worked with my brother so much, you know, and so when we worked on it, you know, it just happened that I developed that way, you know. It's nice.
But it was
you
a
know?
gradual
and
development.
by singing many performances. See, when I made my first recording, this was the time when I didn't sing Forza dell'Estino. So I sang Forza dell'Estino just a few times, and in my second part of my career, I had again the new production in Metropolitan, and so that's the time when I had little changes made.
But do you think that basically you you have recorded arias differently after you have done the parts on stage that would affect your pure vocalism? In other words, having done a part on stage, do you think that changes the way in which you sing it from a purely vocal point of view?
Well, this is very difficult to say, you know, because this is not experience, you know. This is just your taste changes a little bit, you know, and you get a little bit more matured, and that just a little difference, you know, makes me happy, you know. But the conception, it's always the same, you know.
Max de Schauensee, as a critic, how do you follow along? What happens if you don't mature as in the same degree as the singer? In other words, how do you keep?
Well, that would be a
keep abreast of that?
disaster. We have to try and keep up and also develop and mature.
Because
I think one of the signs of maturity is to be more tolerant, and I mean to realize the terrible difficulties. I have a hard time. I'm very much criticized in Philadelphia by people who say I'm far too lenient. Well, to me, it's a wonder that those performances come off at all. The Philadelphia two companies, there's no place to rehearse. Academy music really belongs to the Philadelphia Orchestra, and then to the this man who brings in all these features, these concerts. And these singers fly in, they haven't seen each other even. The stage direction is so expensive, and somehow they come off.
But those, you feel that there's room for compassion with criticism?
Oh, certainly. I think you have to take in the human element always. I remember criticizing a young soprano, and she really sang very badly, but I could see she was horribly nervous. So I made all sorts of allowances for that, because with your pen to lightly smash a person's career, sometimes you hear a person in a studio, they sound magnificent, and they get out on the stage and nerves, or they've had a hard day.
You never know under what circumstances one artist sings.
And I think
when I sang in Metropolitan, for my first performance in Metropolitan of Trovatore, you know, I sang first time in my life in Italian language. I never sang anything in Italian before of my repertoire.
You mean it was?
I was prepared completely for Vienna when Maestro Walter heard me, you know, and he was going to engage me, you know, and I sang Aida, and this was I sang in German.
What about the trovatore that you did in?
Sang everything in
was
I
German?
was prepared everything to sing in German. I sang in very much in Prague in Deutsches Theater, and then I sang in Dresden, in many places.
And even in
Hamburg.
Yugoslavia, it was,
and
it was German.
in Yugoslavia, I sang everything in Yugoslav. And then I learning in German. And when I was engaged for America, they didn't hear me when I made an audition for Mr. Johnson. I didn't speak one word of Italian, nor I sang anything in Italian for them. They just engaged me by good sheer luck, you know.
Oh my gosh! I also can't imagine trovatore in Yugoslavian, frankly.
Very nice,
Works?
very close in pronunciation. I mean, the language is Slav, Yugoslav, naturally, but it's very soft and it.
Actually, some of the sounds in Yugoslav, I imagine, would be nearer to Italian than the German.
Absolutely, it is. That's why I never had trouble.
Well, you know, I don't want to get totally sidetracked from the Pace Pace because we were going to hear it through.
Oh, good.
We're not going to get gypped.
So you don't want to disappoint the public.
We should use, I assume, the later recording you would prefer, although we can play you the one you want.
Please do whatever you wish. You know, I think that the second recording is
All right.
more in sound, maybe.
Fine. This
more
is
ideal.
the stereo disc, the 25186, Bob, and we'll play the full cut now and hear all of Pace Pace mio Dio from Verdi's La Forza del Destino, and it is, of course, Zinka Milanov. Zinka Milanov, Pace Pace Mio Dio.